One of the other students during the crit looked at the table and he looked at me and he said, "You didn't make furniture, you made art. You made sculpture." And I was like, well, that's dumb. I'm a furniture maker. Like, I didn't make art. I don't know how to make art. I just made a thing out of wood. And he said, no, you had an idea, you had an emotion that you wanted to impart and for other people to experience. And then you created that and allowed other people to join in that with you. That's all art is. And I was like, oh, is that what I could do that? That's all that, okay. My name is Erik Curtis. I am a furniture designer and maker, and I live in Philadelphia. And so from there, that was really the beginning of me ceasing to make like a dining table or a chest of drawers, and started to make objects that fit in a place, that give people a sense of meaning or purpose or beauty, and trying to, I always use the word manipulate, and I know it has a negative connotation, but manipulate people into an experience. My whole hope was to make an object that invited a viewer to view it from 360 degrees. And as I was finishing up this table, it was up on a surface about chest height, and I was about to get a coat of finish on it. And a random gentleman walked in, walked right up to this table, stopped, walked slowly 360 degrees around this table, and then just kind of smiled and nodded to himself and walked off. And I was like, oh, I won. Like, you did exactly the thing I wanted you to do without me having to tell you to do it. So that piece was then a success. And then I realized I was taking the elements of what this guy was talking about, which is trying to invite people to have an experience. And I successfully did that in this object. And I think that, again, maybe not the biggest accomplishment, but certainly the biggest turning point in my career. So I've been in Philadelphia for about 10 years, give or take. And I came down here, I grew up in upstate New York, came down here for college, and just kind of fell in love with the town. It's the way I always describe it to people is just the shitty little brother in New York, right? It's got everything New York has, it's got everything you want and need, but it's smaller, it's more accessible. It has a great arts culture. It's got a great food town, a great beer town. Like, there's a lot of things going for it. And the longer I've been here, the more I've been embedded in this community of small artists who are supporting one another. Like my shopmate Larissa Huff or my shopmate Amanda. Just incredible people that I get to develop these deep friendships with, and then we get to grow this community more and more. And we just keep, the more I'm here, the more I'm like bringing in new woodworkers. My friend Mary Sy is coming to town in less than a month. And it's just fun to be a part of a really vibrant community that loves both art and craft simultaneously.
So currently we are at a park. Never remember the names of parks, so no idea what it's called, but it is a park in my neighborhood. There's a lot of dogs that come over here whenever I'm watching. Huckleberry, my mom's dog, I always bring him over here in the morning, let him sniff about, you know, maybe grab a coffee, come sit down here for a little while, read a book. You know, and on a nice day in the fall, people be doing yoga over in the grass or setting up hammocks between the trees. It's a neighborhood park. I particularly love this building. I don't know who owns it. I don't know what's in there. I believe it's an auto shop of some kind, but if ever I'm an unnecessarily rich man, I'm gonna walk right in there and just ask them how much they want for that building, because I want that to be my shop. How you doing, brother?
Good. Are you a woodworking guy?
I was insufferable as a kid. I was hyperactive, I was a terrible student, but always was interested in taking things apart and figuring out how they worked. So we had one of those big honking camcorders that sat on the shoulder, you know, those things that cost like your firstborn child. And I wanted to figure out how it worked. I wanted to take it apart and see what was going on inside. And so I stole some of my dad's screwdrivers and I disassembled it, and I was just like pulling out wires left and right. And then I realized at some point, I have no idea how to get this thing back together. And that was a whooping. That was a whooping. When I was in 6th grade, my dad and I rebuilt our back deck. And I distinctly remember like doing this thing, and we were out there, you know, it's June, it's hot, we were out there 10 hours a day. And I was like, this is way better than school. I should just do this for the rest of my life. I should just make things. And I think that's where it started. From there, I started, like when I was a teenager, I started getting on construction crews, worked as a roofer, worked as a carpenter, learned electrical and plumbing. I didn't master those skills, but I learned them well enough to be competent in them. And so my interest started to kind of refine itself more and more. I got into finish carpentry, and then I got into cabinetry. And then eventually, when I was 20, I just found furniture making really interesting. I found this kind of puzzle making of what was happening to be fascinating to me. And I bought a copy of American Woodworker. And Paul Seller's book, Working Wood 1 and 2, had just come out or was coming out. And in that magazine was a sample DVD of his video series of the same name. And I distinctly remember watching him cut edge bandings or inlays, just black and white dental moldings, back and forth, and inlaying them into this table. My girlfriend at the time was kind enough to suffer these videos with me. And I turned to her and I said, that's what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And she was like, what the hell even is that? What do you mean that's what you're gonna do? I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how he's doing that, but whatever that is, that's what I'm gonna do. And from there, it was just my stubbornness of like, well, this is the thing it was like falling in love with a girl. It was, you see a moment in time and you go, that's where my life is headed. And then it was just trying to figure out how to get there. Currently, we are at Hatch Space in Brattleboro, Vermont, and Larissa Huff and I, who's around here somewhere, we're teaching a box making class together. So this is a kind of a basics of box making, but it's also a creative exploration. It's teaching people about the basic principles of design. It's teaching people to take creative risks. And so we've got 9 students in here who are making 9 completely different boxes. Some are doing inlay, some are doing joinery explorations, some are making itty bitty boxes, some are making pretty big boxes. So it's chaos, but in the best possible way. Oh, it was taking classes. It was seeking out Paul, and I took 3 classes from him in upstate New York. And it was graduating college and sending out emails and texts to anybody I could find on the internet, because I didn't know anybody who worked in furniture. And it was 2009, so like great time to graduate college. The economy was doing so well. And nobody would take on an apprentice. So I continued to take a few weekend classes and week-long classes, and then eventually I got into CFC, the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship, and did the 9-month program there. And from there, I worked for some other people. I cobbled together kind of this real-world knowledge of how running a furniture business works from guys like Rob Hare, Clark Peasley, Paul Downs, and eventually went back to CFC to be an assistant, take more classes, do a fellowship. And it's just been a slow burn over the last 10 years of building the foundations of a business so that for the last 1.5 years, I could be a full-time woodworker. I've been teaching for 6-7 years, and that's in a school setting or in a craft school setting, teaching kids, teaching adults. So being able to kind of sprinkle in teaching to my creative practice still is a really fun way to kind of break up the monotony, but also to kind of remember the joy of making things at the very beginning. People get super excited over something as simple as a box, and that's the whole point of teaching. said that would be great.
Because every day in our lives.
Most of the time, the things I'm making are objects for clients. I'm making things for their homes. I'm trying to design objects that fit within a space, take on certain creative limitations. This is why I like commissions. I think it's interesting to be given those frameworks within which to create new things. And the objects that I make can range from casework to tables to sculptures, just depending on what the client's looking for and what I find interesting about the creative prompts that they give me. A couple of years ago, I had a client who lived on a vineyard and they wanted some kind of entryway piece, a piece that when friends and family come over, when they have gatherings, the first thing you see when they walk in their door is this piece. Given that they live on a vineyard and just beyond where the piece would live, there was a big open window looking out onto these young vines. I pulled inspiration from the shape of the vines. I actually talked to my friend Trent Presler and asked him to give me some shots of his vineyard just so I can get some close-ups of what those vines look like in those organic shapes, and ended up creating a 5-legged entry table which they place objects on, place drinks on, and it's the very first thing you see when they walk into their home. So it's a lot of fun to be able to create those objects that people take a great deal of pride in and show folks the first thing they do when they walk into a space is they kind of walk over those objects and they have this story to tell people. They're excited to invite people into their home and share that experience with them. Welcome to where the magic happens. No, don't use that. Welcome to my house where I have most of the things that I've made that I haven't sold. So there's things around. Let's look at them. This is, I think, the first whiskey cabinet I ever made. This was a fun one made of butternut and gummy cherry and ash. Butternut, by the way, underrated. Beautiful, beautiful material. That was during the first fellowship where I also made that table I had mentioned. Table that I made recently because I haven't had a dining table ever in my life, and for 2 years while I've lived here, I just had a tiny, like a table this big. This piece I made during the pandemic. This was a piece that was supposed to kind of reflect on the physical relationships that we have with objects and of course with people at that moment in time. We weren't supposed to touch one another, we were supposed to have this physical distance, and so it was kind of meant to visualize the reverberations of just having, just being able to shake your friend's hand or give somebody a hug and enjoy those moments with people. So that's a special piece. I really like that piece a lot. This is the exploratory nature of work sometimes is I have these maple veneers on this front and I thought those will look cool when I put a light behind them. I had no idea that they were gonna look like kind of biological and like there's something vascular about them that's really interesting. So sometimes you just make a thing and you're surprised by them. First bench I ever made is the first project we did in the 9-month at CFC. So just some curved dovetails and threw mortise and tendons on there. Because river tables are the worst, and if ever I'm gonna make a river table, it's gonna have a boat in it because I just wanted to be a jerk about it. So welcome to my office / guest room. And this is the desk I was talking about earlier, about these curved lines that just kind of rotate on their way up and inviting people to view it from 360 degrees. As much as I love this table, it is a little bit of an unfortunate thing that it's in the corner because you can't then walk around it. But also I live in a small house in a Philly row home, so that's where it's gonna live for right now. This is the Atlas table that was made in 2016, 2017. That's where it lives. I use it every day, I put things on it, it's great. This was the first piece I ever designed. This was the case piece from the 9-month. The design prompt in this piece was to have a door and a drawer. So the lid acts as the door, and then we've got a drawer down here. It's a blanket chest, delightful. It's not really my style, it's very much in the arts and crafts. This is just a random collection of things that I've made, and I just reacquired these pieces, which I always really liked. These are the sunrise sunset cabinets. So we've got a motif of a sunrise in brass in that top left corner, and then a motif of a sunset in copper in this bottom right corner. And it works really well on this wall as well because the sun rises on that side of the house and sets over here. But you know, don't mind the patches of the holes in the wall that I just did the other day. So that's where we're at. That's wood things and stuff. Waiting for tonight. Oh, this is vintage J-Lo. Pizza time.
Food scene in Philly is phenomenal. A lot of people from New York who want to start restaurants up there come down to Philly because it's cheaper, it's close by, still a major market. So we get things like Pizzeria Badia, which is one of the best pizzas in the region, in my opinion, and it's a 10-minute walk from my house. I mean, what else do you want?
Oh, Annie. Annie's the reason. My dear, dear friend, Ann of all trades. We've been friends since maybe 2014. I was making a table at which is now my desk currently. And she said, "It's a great piece. Why aren't you making content?" And I was like, I don't know, Instagram, you know. And she looked me dead in the eyeballs and she said, "Get over yourself and start making content." And I said, "Oh, okay." The whole time she was like, "Start making YouTube content." And I was like, I don't know. So I tinkered with it a little bit. And April Wilkerson, who's another dear friend of mine, said similarly. She was like, "Just get on YouTube, start making long form content." And I was really debating with myself this question of, at the risk of sounding like an elitist, how do you be a YouTuber and a proper furniture maker simultaneously? I know that there are people who do it, but I didn't know how to navigate that web. And Yuri Kobayashi, who I consider one of my greatest mentors in life, and her, more or less, she kind of echoed what Annie said to me 4 years before. And she said, if there's a business opportunity there, don't be stupid, just do YouTube. And literally after that conversation, I was like, if Yuri Kobayashi is telling me to do YouTube, I should probably just do YouTube. And I set 3 goals this year that I was gonna hit all 3 of them on YouTube. One of which was to make 52 videos in a year, so 1 every week. One of which was to hit 50,000 subscribers, which I just did the other week. Yahtzee. And the last of which, being a competitive person, I set goals of friends of mine who I want to then beat. And when I started YouTube, I called April and said, "I'm coming for your crown." I haven't passed April yet, but I did just pass my good buddy Jeff, 2 Moose Designs, and I called him up and I was like, "I got you, boy." So those are my 3 goals for 2023. That was a wild experience. That was not a thing I ever had in my my hopes, my dreams. I never expected to be on TV. I got a call from a casting agent one random day, and he said, "There's a home renovation show going on that we can't tell you the network for, but it'll be a ton of fun." And long story short, I ended up flying out to LA later that week, and then they called me up the next day and they said, "We loved you, we want you on the show, we're filming in a week and a half, can you be down in Atlanta?" And I was still teaching at the time, and I was like, guys, what are we doing? So I got down to Atlanta, and it was a tremendous amount of fun. It was the biggest, dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, and I'm dear friends with Paige and Nick and Adair, and Danielle was a delight to work with. She's a very, very kind person. And it was weird to be an on-camera personality for the first time in my life. And then the experience of having a show come out and people watching it and it getting to number 4 in the US and number 1 in a bunch of different countries. It was all very exciting, and it was also a little bit overwhelming. It it was a myriad of experiences all kind of compressed into this weird thing that's now like a fun story to tell at a bar. My hope, in a nutshell, is to make objects that make the world slightly more beautiful. I understand that what I'm doing doesn't actually change the world, right? I'm not curing AIDS, I'm not curing homelessness, but I do think that place and objects really do have an impact on the way people view themselves and the value that they perceive themselves with. So giving a beautiful object to somebody, and this is not necessarily just client work with people who have enough money to commission custom furniture, but just making objects as gifts for people, or just making things because I have an idea and then being able to sell those at a reasonable rate that a normal person can purchase them because of things like content. Like, those things I think really do matter. And like when you wake up and you get to interact with an object that's special and valuable and has some meaning for you, I think that has an impact on the way that you go about your day and about your life. And like, for example, the commission I'm working on right now is a piece for 2 Navy pilots who had a child a little bit later in life, and they want to give her an object for her first birthday. And in that object, they want to give her a gift every year for her birthday until she turns 18. And 1, that's just a beautiful sentiment. And 2, it's also this thing of being Navy pilots. They're like, we don't know if something's gonna happen. So having this object that this child will get to keep for the rest of their lives that is so emotionally tied to their parents and their parents' love for them, and to get to have like a physical, tangible manifestation of that love. I think that, like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, it means nothing, and yet it means everything simultaneously. And those are the kinds of things I hope to do with furniture, is just to make objects that have meaning and bring people joy. It's fantastic. Like, it's ruined me. I don't think I could ever have a job again. What does motivate me? I don't know that there's a conscious effort to be motivated. I just fucking love what I do, man. Like I said before, like it was like falling in love with a girl. Like, I knew immediately that this was the thing I was gonna do, and I've never had any second guessing of that. And every time I get to make an object, like, it's always a struggle. It's a struggle, it's challenging, there's pros and cons, and that's just life, but this thing of making objects, and making objects out of wood for some reason, straight up, that's the thing that motivates me. I just love doing it.